So what is a cell? You guys might already know this from the vocabulary slide, but that's okay. Um, I'm not going to take any volunteers for this one, just for time. So remember, everyone, a cell is the basic living unit of all life on Earth. Celine, you want to do this one?
Mhm. So we have our friend over here. His name is Robert Hooke, and he lived back in 1665. So that's a long, long time ago. And you're probably wondering, how is he relevant? He just looks like this old dude that has nothing related to me. Like, why do I care? Well, here's the thing. He actually discovered some cells. So as you can see over here, do you guys see this microscope over here? Yeah. Okay, so his microscope used like three lenses instead of one, which was like really, really cool. But actually, for that time, it was really cool because it could magnify up to 20 to 50 times. But in our modern day and age, it's not that good because our microscope can like multiply 10 times what his can, or maybe 1,000. So he was looking at corks, and corks are actually made from plant material. And while he was looking at them carefully, he noticed that there were like empty chambers, kind of like rooms in monasteries. And then he realized, oh, I know what this is. This is a cell. And over here, we also have this oil lamp and water flask. Now, as we remember from last lesson, oil is a lipid. So what does this have to do? Well, when you have this oil lamp and water flask, it helps it helps make the cell more visible. And in fact, I think Robert has something to say to us. I think William actually knows what he's trying to say over here.
Do you guys see it showing up? No? Yes?
Yes.
Uh,
Oh, I think I see a tiny cloud there.
No word.
oh, no words. But that's fine. What he's trying to say is this really me? So, everyone, have you ever heard of Newton?
His only portrait got buried.
Yeah, his only portrait.
Okay, it's there now.
Yeah. So, have you guys ever heard of Newton, the scientist that the apple dropped on his head and then he figured
Yeah.
out what gravity is?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Yes.
all have heard of Newton.
So
And
he buried the only portrait of him.
yeah, we'll get to that actually. So, Newton, he actually was enemies with Hooke. Why? Because in order to get to one of Newton's most famous discoveries, he had to use one of the discoveries of Hooke. But then afterward, Hooke thought that Newton just took this idea to himself and didn't share the credit, which means didn't share pretty much the reward of finishing this discovery. So that's how their rivalry started. Actually, the picture of Hooke you're looking at is actually not Hooke because, as Peyton and Ethan said, Robert Hooke's only portrait was lost, and it was lost in the hands of Newton because Hooke, he was actually the president of the Royal Science Society of England, and after Hooke died, Newton took the role of president of the RSS. And after Hooke died, Newton, he supposedly lost the portrait as a comeback to his former enemy.
Remember, lost in quotation marks. Okay.
But, yes, but for this class, we can just imagine that he looks like this, all right?
And this isn't the only scientist like rivalry we'll talk about. We're going to talk about evolution later on, and we're going to talk about Darwin and Wallace, which is a very interesting rivalry as well.
Yes.
Serena, do you have a question?
It's not a question, it's a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I know what Robert Hooke looks like.
Really?
Yes.
Not possible.
He wears a wig.
Yes, he did wear a wig, but we don't know what his face actually looks like. But very good, everyone. So,
Yeah.
Celine, go ahead.
There's lots of theories around that, but we're going to try to stick to what we're trying to learn today. So basically, as you can see over here, here's a picture of the cells, and you can see how they have like little rooms in there, right? It's like really, really tiny, but you can see how they differentiate. And then that's how you realize those were cells.
Yeah, that bottom picture is actually a picture of the cells in cork. So that's the stuff that you use
Mhm.
to cram into the neck of a wine bottle. And on the upper side, that's a picture of a slice of a tiny stem of a plant, or if you prefer, sprig of plant. This continues our journey, our deep dive into the cell. This is Mr. von Leeuwenhoek. You don't need to pronounce his name correct, it's Dutch. So his whole name is Anton van Leeuwenhoek, and he was a scientist in 1665. He's a Dutch man, and he used a single lens microscope. And he discovered that there were tiny little animals in pond water, and he called these animalcules. So pretty much animal plus cules. So Cules. And just a fun fact that might be on your game, Anton von Leeuwenhoek, the name itself, Leeuwenhoek, means lion's corner.
Yeah, exactly. And Anton van Leeuwenhoek, he was also in contact with lots of nobles, like we're talking kings and queens, because of his great discovery. And he was also in contact with the organization we were talking about earlier, with Robert Hooke and how he was the president of the Royal Scientists. No, sorry, the Royals. And they basically actually had conversations with each other through letters. So that's kind of interesting. So this is the basis of cell theory. So we have our friends over here. We have two German botanists. Does anyone remember what botanist means from last lesson? Connor,
Oh,
would you like to?
yep, Connor, please do.
Basically plant experts.
Exactly. And then we also have one German physician. So basically, they came up with certain theories for cells. So here, our friend Mathis, he came up with a theory that plants are made of cells, which is actually true. And plant cells are a little bit different from animal cells, as we will see later on in the lesson. And then Theodore over here also learned that animals are made of cells, which is correct. So you and me are actually made of cells. And then we have Rudolph, and he realized that cells must divide from existing cells. Now, what happens when cells don't divide properly? Well, it creates cancer. And we'll talk about that in a future lesson.
Yes, Serena?
So if cells go together, since cells are in your body, right?
Yes.
And then if they go together, you have cancer.
So, not always. Normal cells, properly divided cells, they clump together to form your heart, your brain, all, even your skin. It's all cells. But if it's these big, fat, mean cells that we call cancer cells, then when they clump together, they form something called a tumor.
Exactly. And we'll talk about this in later lessons, so don't worry too much. All you need to know is that sometimes cells don't divide properly and they create cancer.